What's up, Taiwan? I'm Laurel Stewart with the news from here in Taiwan and around the world. India and Pakistan are accusing one another of breaking a ceasefire in Kashmir just hours after the truce was announced. It comes after some of the deadliest fighting in the region in years. John Van Trieste reports.
Flashes in the sky pierced the evening calm in Kashmir, threatening to end a ceasefire reached just hours before, and dashing hopes of a de-escalation in one of the world's big flashpoints. Nuclear-armed rivals India and Pakistan both claim Kashmir. And after a terror attack in the region killed 26 tourists, India blamed Pakistan, sparking the worst fighting between the two countries in decades. The two sides agreed to hit pause on Saturday in a surprise announcement from Washington, bringing celebration and hopes for peace in Kashmir.
We thank God for this ceasefire announcement. It's a relief for us Kashmiris and all the Indian states. War doesn't solve anything. We will sleep soundly tonight. The war has kept us awake.
Now, though, India and Pakistan both say the other side has broken the truce.
We call upon Pakistan to take appropriate steps to address these violations and deal with the situation with seriousness and responsibility. The armed forces are maintaining a strong vision on the situation. They have been given instructions to deal strongly with any instances of a repetition of the violations of the borders along the international border as well as the line of control.
Pakistan says it hasn't made any violations, but their foreign ministry says it's India breaching the agreement. And their forces are handling the situation with responsibility and restraint. Some analysts had questioned from the beginning whether the truce could hold, but say the stakes are high, both in Kashmir and beyond.
This is, of course, a conflict between two nuclear-armed states. The possibility of escalation was something that wasn't just important to India and Pakistan, but was important to all of their neighbors and really the whole world.
The question now is whether the two sides will go back to the negotiating table and stop a flare-up that's killed dozens, including children, from growing. Delphine Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is calling for direct talks with Ukraine, possibly as soon as this week, to try to end the war that's been raging since Russia invaded in 2022.
В этой связи, несмотря ни на что, предлагаем киевским властям возобновить переговоры, прерванные ими в конце 2022 года. Возобновить прямые переговоры, причем, подчеркну, без всяких предварительных условий.
He's proposing the talks take place in Istanbul on May 15th and says they should focus on reaching a lasting peace, addressing what he describes as the root causes of the conflict. He says Ukraine has not yet responded to the offer. Back in March, Ukraine agreed to a US proposal for an immediate 30-day ceasefire, but Moscow turned it down. Ukraine has repeatedly accused Russia of breaking several ceasefire agreements since the war began. US President Donald Trump says the US and China are starting a total reset in their trade talks after top officials from both sides met in Geneva. The two countries had imposed levies of over 100% on each other's goods following Trump's so-called reciprocal tariff plan on April 2nd. The trade war between the world's two biggest economies rattled markets and sparked fears of a global recession. So far, neither side has shared details about what was discussed in Geneva. Former Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen is in Lithuania, a country she helped strengthen ties with during her time in office. While there, Tsai toured Europe's largest vertical farm, a project built with help from Taiwanese engineers. She also praised Lithuania for its shared commitment to democracy. Back in 2021, Lithuania made headlines by opening the Taiwanese representative office in Vilnius, the first in Europe to use the name Taiwanese instead of Taipei. China, which claims Taiwan, strongly objected. In response, Beijing downgraded diplomatic ties and imposed trade restrictions on Vilnius. Taiwan's waters are teeming with life, home to nearly 10% of the world's marine species. But rising ocean temperatures are putting that rich ecosystem at risk, and mass coral bleaching is already taking a toll. To learn more, our reporter Jeffrey Chen sat down with Anna Lu Tan, director of White Flower, a film that dives into Taiwan's underwater world and its fight to protect it.
So I know you study neuroscience, film, and critical theory. That's a very rather unique and interesting combination. How did these different studies inspired you and influence your filmmaking process?
I always felt like the disciplines were never quite separate. Whenever I approached science, it was with the heart of a poet. And I always had this feeling of that these disciplines were never really separate. So when I deepened my study of science and ecology, marine ecosystems, it only strengthened my conviction to want to communicate this to the rest of the world. There seemed to be a massive chasm between the scientific community and the general public. And I thought the medium of film, an artistic medium, one that provokes your affective self, your feelings, could be a pedagogical tool to basically raise consciousness in a different way and make that very vital scientific information that like the entire scientific community of the world has been building on and accumulating, but it remains siloed and isolated and maybe difficult to understand for most people. So I felt this is where I can come in and help to bridge this gap of understanding.
So this speaks to the interconnectedness of our lives and coral reefs. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
That's a big theme of the film, and it's kind of even, I felt the coral reef itself was kind of an embodiment of the interconnectedness that was kind of at the foundation of what I wanted to communicate, was to show that humans were not outside of nature, but a part of it. And I think that's kind of like a fallacy that we're kind of living with, this idea of separateness. But based on the empirical data and the consensus of the scientific community, our fates are intrinsically linked. And if the coral reef goes, so do we. So do 1 billion people and their livelihoods, the coastal people who live on the coast, people who rely on the protein of the ocean. 25% of the marine life depends on these coral reefs to survive. So just based on the facts, we are connected. And so I just wanted to bring that to light for more and more people so we can save this very precious ecosystem before it's too late.
And were there any moments during the production and filming that challenged your expectations or changed the way you see the ocean and marine ecology?
I learned a lot of new things from the different scientists and research groups in Taiwan. Some of the main points I want to convey is that there's basically, I'll say, two main threats to the coral reef ecosystem everywhere, but specifically in Taiwan, well, we have the massive one, which is the greenhouse gases being added to the atmosphere, which causes global heating. And the ocean takes a lot of the brunt of that heating. So that's what causes the bleaching, acidification, and so if it just tips just the right amount, the entire coral reef ecosystem is bleached. And there's this algal symbiotic partner with the coral, zooxanthellae, that gets expelled at a certain point if it gets heated too much, the water. So that's the tipping point thing that's really important. If we can keep that like base structure, the corals itself, which is a living animal, alive, then we can keep an entire ecosystem alive. So we have to look at the kind of quality of the water. So things like mismanagement of coastal mismanagement. So things where you're building along the coast that allows for like sedimentation to like enter the water, river runoff, these kind of just direct, debris and things that like change the chemistry of the water. We can avoid that. That is so doable. We can do that right now, and we really should. And we could be saving a lot of our beautiful like ecosystem here. And yeah, I think that's what's really cool is like whenever I show this film to Taiwanese people, they immediately care so much. They're immediately concerned about protecting it.
That was director Anna Lu Tan. You can watch the full interview with her on Zoom In, Zoom Out, available on YouTube and TaiwanPlus.com. Taiwan's longest religious pilgrimage, held in honor of the sea goddess Mazu, is winding down. This year, the event has drawn over 300,000 participants. To help pilgrims stay on track, a team of engineers has come up with a dedicated app. Our reporter Sandy Chi has the story.
A grand journey to honor the sea goddess Mazu. This is the Baisatuan Mazu pilgrimage. Among all the pilgrimages in the country, this one stands out as the longest religious procession on foot, lasting for 10 days and covering around 400 kilometers. This year, it drew over 300,000 participants, the highest number of pilgrims in its history. What makes this pilgrimage unique is that it follows no fixed route.
因为我觉得这是台湾人的一种信仰，而且它这边的信仰它是没有一定的路线，所以它每年都是依照马祖它的意思在进行绕境，好像就是跟着马祖在走，然后你自己心灵也可以沉淀。
For participants to keep up with Mazu, a team of volunteer engineers created a GPS app to accurately track the deity's location.
那时候的网络环境啊，其实没有像现在很多直播。那其实大家都喜欢上网去看马祖在哪，然后我去现场看。然后我记得当时候其实网络上有几个 GPS 有做，但很卡顿，所以我就觉得应该把 UI 做好，然后就是让使用者更好查询，而且我的本质上我会知道怎么样在大流量之下更顺畅。对，然后做着做着就做到现在这个规模。
Tracking Mazu isn't as easy as it may seem. It requires someone to stay close to the deity throughout the 10-day journey, as setting up a device on a sedan chair is not an option. In 2024 alone, the app was downloaded 880,000 times.
那我发现，真的有帮助到某些人。那被帮助到，你收到这些回馈，其实会很开心的。对，我觉得是一种成就感。
The app is free and only available for download a few days before the annual Baisatuan Mazu pilgrimage. With this year's event ending on Sunday, those who don't grab it now will have to wait until 2026. Jiangsu, Xingling, Pichi Zhuang and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Today is Mother's Day in Taiwan, but people planning to give carnations as gifts may have to check their wallets. Our reporter Sandy Chi is back with this report.
Considered a symbol of mother's love for her children, carnations are a popular flower, often gifted on Mother's Day, which falls on Sunday in Taiwan. Here in Taiwan, most carnations are grown in the central county of Changhua. However, this year, many of the blooms may not be ready in time for the special day because of unusually cold weather earlier this year.
今年遇到寒流比较多啊，所以它有减产。 生长缓慢啊，减产，它大概两成左右。是种植康乃馨也有到20年以上，啊，没有遇过这种情形。
The late bloom is being reflected in carnation prices, with one variety costing 30% more than in previous years. Despite the higher cost, customers say they are still willing to buy.
人家种的也辛苦了，反正还是要该给人家就要给人家。
1年1次而已啊，对啊，所以是可以接受的。
With the lower supply, florists say there is a chance that prices may continue to rise further before Mother's Day on Sunday. Scott Huang and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, let's take a look at the UK's National Gallery, which has rehung its entire collection for its 200th anniversary. I'm Laurel Stewart. Take care and see you next time.